Well, how's it going, everybody? Good. Right? David, now you hear it in person, right? Sometimes I gotta yell, maybe, people like Sam, they can't hear me. I mean, he's in Alabama. I gotta scream loud enough so they can hear me in Alabama, right? How's everybody doing? I have one question. How about our Jekyll and Hyde Astros? 7-19, but 19-6 in the last 45. It's going to be a wild ride, everybody. Buckle in, right? Before we get started, I would just like to say welcome to all the guests. Welcome to new members. And if this is your first time, welcome. We have 3 new members that I counted this month. And again, if you don't know who I am, if you're wondering who this guy is yelling at you, all right? My name is Joe Thompson. They say I'm the president of this chapter. It's very important with the announcement I'm going to make here in a few minutes. All right? But again, welcome to the Larry Dierker chapter, the May Thursday night edition. Bob, have we ever had a meeting on a Thursday night? This is the first time in how many years have we been a chapter? 20. The first time in 20 years we've ever had a Thursday meeting. So congratulations, y'all made history. All right? All right. So we have 3 new guests, 3 new members. Our normal AV guy, Chris, is not here. So if anything messes up as far as all this goes, please blame me. You don't have to blame Chris. You can blame me. This is my equipment. It's probably not as, it's probably not as advanced as Chris's. My backup AV guy, Patrick, is not here. But it's all right. We're just kind of doing it on our own today.
Your relative girl is here.
Huh? My wonderful, beautiful, most gorgeous person on earth, my wife.
I got your property.
Right here. Is controlling everything. She didn't think. What?
Just like at home.
Just like it. Right. All right.
We know who made the slaughter dance of the family.
Right. When my steak came out, because it is steak night here. When my steak came out, she looked at it. I cut it up. She was like, "No, that's not good for him. You got to send it back." But anyway, Greg Bergeron. Greg, are you here?
Right.
Just joined this month from Houston, right?
Correct.
Friend of Marcia,
Correct, yeah.
right? Friend
Me
of
and my
Marcia.
mom are good friends and
Yeah.
yeah, we're up into this, her 80th birthday party.
Well, how does Marcia celebrate? She's in Paris and you're here,
Yeah.
right?
Paris, Texas.
Paris, France. Sorry, Greg, but welcome. Right, yeah. And Olympics 2 months away. Roger, Sealand from Tyler, not
Right here.
Roger. Right there. How you doing, Roger?
I'm good.
Good. Now, maybe 3 for 3. Glenda Green. Glenda is from Montgomery, Texas. That's close to you, Tal. Close to me.
I was supposed to pick her up.
I know. Right. But
I'm gonna go back.
you know that's your job now that you live out there.
It's a nice drive.
Right. By the way, I would like to welcome Tal. He moved out to Conroe and he dared drive down 45 to get here. So I'm glad you made it, Tal.
Yeah, nice to see everybody again, and certainly want to hear David. So.
Thanks. Any first time guests? One person. Gabe, right? All right, Gabe. Tell us where you're from, first and last name, and why you're here.
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Gabe Gauthier. I was born in New Orleans, but I moved here like year before Katrina, so that's so 304. So I've been raised here my whole life, been an Astros fan since. I'm a software developer. I worked at Reynolds & Reynolds. I graduated from UH, go Cougs.
That's right. Go Cougs.
So I've got Houston born through and through.
I'll be the town guy, all right?
Yeah, I stumbled upon this, SABR. I was looking at some baseball stats. I was curious if they got them, baseball reference. I saw like the SABR website, saw the Houston chapter, and now I'm here.
Thank you, Gabe. Welcome, welcome. Pleasure to meet you. If you missed last month, chapter member, Houston historian, Mike Vance was our guest, and he talked about his new baseball fiction book, Wango. If you haven't had a chance to pick it up, this is the, as we found out, part 1 of 2. So if you want to give it a read, pick up it's a baseball novel. It's not bad so far. Before I go any further, we have something special that I think we're doing also for the first time, right, Bob? A vote for chapter. Okay. Maybe you've heard or you didn't hear. I send out a lot of emails, a lot of notifications. Tonight, besides listening to David, we're doing a chapter officer and adoption of the bylaws election. So all of you that are here, maybe the exception to David, I'm assuming all of you have chosen the Larry Dierker chapter to be your primary chapter. About a week ago, I sent out a link, a SurveyMonkey link, that you can vote for chapter officers for adoption of the bylaws online. But if you didn't get a chance to vote for chapter officers, we're going to do this once a year now. The reason we're doing this is that SABR wants us to, and we want to be recognized as one of the great chapters. I mean, we are a great chapter. We have a research project going on. We meet every month, well, at least 10 times a year. And if it takes us having elections once a year to be recognized by SABR to be one of the best chapters in the country, even though I know we're the best chapter in the country, okay? All right? Then so be it. So I'm going to pass around a paper ballot. If you voted online, we're going to use this by the honor system. This year, we're voting for president, chapter secretary, one newsletter editor, VP communications, VP of special projects and event. And a simple question: do you accept the chapter bylaws that we sent out about a week and a half ago? Now, if you voted online already, please don't vote again. All right, this is no stuff in the ballot box.
Ask anybody who hasn't voted online if they want a paper ballot now.
Okay, if they have.
They hadn't voted on.
Okay, so how many of you have not voted? Okay, so I'm just gonna, a lot of people. All right.
Read your emails?
And I did that.
No, you're gonna
I just gotta look.
I know, I need to get on the ball.
They're going, oh, that's a Thompson.
Hal said I was doing a great job, but apparently I'm not. So I'm gonna pass around this paper ballot election. When you're done voting, give it to Bob or Gloria. Okay? Gloria is currently the chapter secretary. Bob is our president emeritus. So they will be handling the election. You know, there's not gonna be any ballot harvesting. I'm not gonna try to fight against the results of the election or anything like that.
Are there any campaign speeches?
The campaign speech, I've tried, that's all I'm saying. I've tried my best. I tried to make it enjoyable for y'all. I tried to wake y'all up in the evening. Apparently I scared David already. But I like to have, I think SABR should, I mean, it's not just numbers, right? SABR is stories and getting together and having a great time and having a lot of good events. And I really think, as engaging as we are as a chapter, with some of the great chapter members like Tal and Dirk, of course, I mean, we really are one of the best in the country, I think, and I want to keep that going. So if you believe me, you know, please vote for me. If not, please write it yourself. Okay. Okay, so that's the thought leader. Yeah, or just take one pass. Okay, and voting closes at 8 o'clock, so I think we're gonna have that brother. All right, so
Is it online voting now still?
so online, if you have recognized the Larry Dierker chapter as your primary chapter, then you were part of a list. I sent out an email with the SurveyMonkey link about a week ago, and I actually sent it out again earlier today, and yesterday I sent it out. You just have to click on that link and you can vote that way. But just look for my name and be reminded. The voting closes at 8 o'clock. You want to vote on that? Okay. All right.
Already voted.
Yeah. Next question.
They said they already voted.
They already voted? Okay. All right, you just throw this. Okay. Okay, real quick, a couple of SABR announcements. It kind of goes with what we're doing as a chapter this summer. There's some interesting things going on with SABR. I know of at least 2 people in here that are really interested in the Jerry Malloy Negro League Conference. Right there. And Gloria, right? If you have never been to that conference, but you would like to listen to the speakers, if you would like to attend, but not necessarily go to Cooperstown, you can register for the event. This is the first year they've ever done it virtually. Okay, so you can like zoom in and listen to all the panels and all the speakers. It starts June the 6th, and for $75, you can get all the panels and all the presentation. It would be like you're actually there. Matt, are you actually going?
Not this year.
Okay. Gloria, are you going?
No, I registered to do it online.
I recommend if you want to join online, that's a great presentation.
Right. Okay. This year, they're having the Jerry Malloy Negro League Conference in Cooperstown. I think this is last year it was Detroit, right? Okay, but if you want to attend virtually, it's $75 for everything. Okay, all the presentations. Okay, and it's from the 6th, Thursday the 6th through Saturday, January the 8th. If you want information, just log into sabr.org or email Leslie Heafy. If you want her email address, I can give it to you. Okay, that's June 6th through the 8th. If you don't have anything to do, Saturday, June the 15th, Mike McCroskey has set up a night at the ballpark in Sugar Land for all of us. It's the Space Cowboys versus the Oklahoma City Dodgers. Saturday, June the 15th. Those fathers out there, that's the day before Father's Day. Okay? If you want to go, you have to mail your check to Mike. He didn't give me a date, but I'm assuming it's going to have to be pretty quick. It's $65 per person and $3 per car. Okay, what do I get for $65? If you've never been, you get the buffet, you get to sit in the air-conditioned Regents Bank Club and hang out with all of us on Saturday, June 15th. Bring your family, whatever. It's pretty cool. Buffet stuff. So if you want to go, contact Mike. I can give you Mike's email address. Make sure you make out the check to SL Baseball LLC. Don't make it out to Mike McCroskey. He's asked me 100 times to tell you, please don't make it out to him. I'm gonna write a check if you want. Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Fred said that, I did.
Wow.
You can sell me, but you can't sell Mike. That's one. All right. Mike prefers a check. I literally had to order checks so I can write him a check. And yeah, so anyway, that's Saturday, June the 15th. Monday, July 15th, we will have our only chapter meeting of the summer. I'm very excited about this meeting. I have been trying to find this person literally for over a decade. Matt Dahlgren. He's the grandson of Yankees legend Ellsworth Babe Dahlgren. You don't know who Babe Dahlgren is? Babe Dahlgren replaced Lou Gehrig at first base. Okay? But Matt Dahlgren will be our guest. All I can say about that is he wrote a book back in 2012 called Rumor in Town. This book is a fulfillment of a promise he made to his granddad. Something happened to his grandfather. Some rumor was spread around the league that eventually cost him his career. Cost Babe Dahlgren his career. Now, without giving everything away, which I almost did earlier, you really have to come and see him talk Monday, July the 15th over Zoom. I found this story so fascinating that I included this story in my master's thesis and my PhD dissertation. Okay? Now, here in this town, we know a little something about somebody being accused of something that maybe they didn't really do, and they get a bad name across the league for it. Jose Altuve and others. Okay, but Matt Dahlgren is fulfilling a promise he made to his granddad, Babe Dahlgren. And Babe Dahlgren was the victim of a rumor, which he was, according to Matt, according to the stories, Babe Dahlgren was accused and he got his career ruined. He should have never been accused because he didn't do it. He scored for his grandson. But you'll have to hear the story, and I didn't want to give too much of it away. It is a fascinating story. Be here Monday, July the 15th for that. Okay, August is going to be, for SABR members, it's going to be very busy. August 7th through the 11th. Please join me and a couple people in this room in Minneapolis for SABR 52. Who signed up? Who's going to SABR 52? Okay, yeah, Bob, all right. Be in Minneapolis, August 7th through the 11th. SABR's National Convention, Rod Carew will be there, Tony Liga, Bert Bylevin, Jim Cott. It's $265 before June the 7th, $295 after June 7th. That is August 7th through the 11th for Minneapolis, SABR 52. And then finally, if you ain't got anything to do at the end of the summer, and some of you have already signed up for it, we're having another day at the ballpark, but it's going to be in Corpus Christi. It's Saturday, August the 31st. Corpus Christi Hooks versus the Tulsa Drillers. If you want to go to that, we have quite a few people signed up already. You just talk to me. You can mail me a check. You can pay me at the meeting tonight, either cash or card. I can take card. You know, you can Zelle if you want to, Cash App. The cost of this is $68. You can put a deposit down to $20, but this is for Saturday, August 31st. You get a buffet. You get to sit in the Sitco Cotton Club and see. If you've never been to Whataburger Field, it's a beautiful scene. Okay, if you want to go. All right, that's all I'm going to say, and I cannot wait to hear the conversation for tonight. David Jerome. We've known David for a while. David has spoke with us before, but he spoke with it January 2021, David? May of 2021, David, alongside former Astros manager Bill Virdon and his wife Shirley, sat with us on Zoom, and it's my recollection is one of the largest gatherings of a meeting we've ever had. Almost 65 to 70 people were on Zoom to listen to Bill Virdon and Shirley and talk about Bill's life in baseball. Bill had promised for a long time, you know, one day I'm going to come down there after I write this book. Well, Bill wrote a book about Bill Virdon's life. Bill Virdon was the still the winningest coach in Astros history. All right, this book came out what, last year? February 2023. I spent a lot of time with the Virdons, published that book, and unfortunately for us, Bill and Shirley are no longer with us. But Bill has graciously agreed, as you can see, to come speak with us. He has copies of the book. He's going to talk about Bill and Shirley and their life. If you don't really know anything about Bill, well, I got a little something about Bill. Bill is an independent researcher and writer. David, what am I saying? See, I'm losing it. All right, David. I'm still talking about Virdon.
They're right someone in.
David Jerome is the author.
Revote.
I do need something. I'm telling you. I'm glad the semester's over. All right. David, the speaker. He's the editor of the book Examining War and Conflict Around the World. Author of the Bill Virdon book, A Life in Baseball, retired U.S. officer, former college professor, career in the military. David worked in engineering firms in Kansas City before getting his PhD at University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. Okay, David is a member of SABR and is currently conducting research on Elwyn Preacher Road. So without further ado, David. Thank you. All right.
I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here tonight, after being on the Zoom end of things for the last several years. I'm down here to talk about a good man, who I grew very close to over a period of several years, him and his wife and his 3 daughters. Bill thought the world of his time in Houston as the Astros manager, when Tal Smith called him and told him it might be a job down here for him, in the fall of '75. And so I'd just like to emphasize the reason I'm here is to talk about Bill. We sell books, that's fine, but I just want to represent Bill Virdon to a group of people that he thought a lot of, and that's the Houston Astro fan base. So that's the primary reason for me making the trip down here. It was kind of a trek, it was quite a trek down. It started raining just west of Little Rock on I-30. It rained real hard clear to Marshall, Texas last night. And so I don't know if a tornado went right in front of me or what. It was pretty bad by the time I got to the hotel last night. So anyway, it's good to be here with you. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you this evening, and thank you for choosing Thursday night as steak night, like I really needed it. But thank you very much. Looks good. Yeah, we can go ahead and start the.
Oh, did you?
No, I didn't. Right here. Okay, forgot to give it to you earlier too.
Oh my.
Bill Virdon was born in Hazel Park, Michigan,
Okay, wait a minute.
June 9th, 1931.
Wait a minute, wait.
Legend has, now, I'm just doing a little preface to the,
Well,
you can't do it.
without disconnecting Zoom, no.
Okay. You want to go ahead
Can
and
you
just talk?
email me?
You want me to go ahead and just talk?
Yeah, can you email the
I
presentation?
don't have Wi-Fi here.
Okay, all right, yeah, just
I'll go ahead and just talk.
talk for now.
I have a wonderful presentation because it's really a Houston Astros theme associated with it. You know, so I was really proud of it. In fact, I had this shirt fixed up for this occasion, because I wanted to represent Bill the best I could. Bill was born on June 9th, 1931 in Hazel Park, Michigan, just northwest of Detroit.
We got
and
you.
Legend has it that he went to his first baseball game when he was a week old. And he was a big fan of the Detroit Tigers, and his #1 hero at the time in the 1930s was Hank Greenberg. And he just loved watching Hank play ball. He thought he was fantastic. Ironically, Hank would end up a little later in his career playing in the outfield with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Which one is it?
It should be the gold. Can you scroll up? That should be a Bill Virdon presentation.
Right here?
Yes. How'd you get that? Susan did. Susan.
I told you, this is what my wife did. Susan, the brains got him.
Yeah, I was going to give it to him earlier. He said, I wanted you to give it to me now because I might lose her or something. I forgot what it was.
I'm batting 1,000 tonight, David.
See, I'm proud of that. Proud of that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so Hank Greenberg, and when Bill was about 12 or 13 years old, his mom and dad were both from South Central Missouri originally, and they moved back to West Missouri, West Plains. Actually, there's a little town called South Fork, about 9 miles west of West Plains, when Bill was about 12 years old. And Bill would actually walk into West Plains to pick up to play baseball. They didn't have baseball at West Plains High School back then. And so he tried to play baseball whenever he could. So anyway, it's good to be here. Next. When I first started talking to Bill in January of 2020, I realized that he was not going to offer up a lot of information about himself because he never wanted to come across as bragging about anything. So what I had to do is do my homework and then confront him with things. And right along early February, we were together 2 or 3 times a week. He would say, well, I guess I did that. And I really wanted that to be the name of the book, but the publisher decided that people wouldn't understand it across the market. So they decided a baseball life would be what it would be. So next lesson. And he did that. He did a lot of things. He was signed, out of high school, graduated from high school in 1949. The year before, during his junior and senior year of high school, a good friend of his named Gene Richmond was going to go out to Clay Center, Kansas, north of Abilene, Kansas, to play summer ball. It's kind of a semi-pro group up there. And Bill heard about it. He said, Gene, can I go with you? He said, well, sure. And so he told his mom and dad he was going to go up to the Play Center and play ball that summer. And so they go up there. About 2 weeks into that experience up there, they sent Gene Richmond home because they didn't think he was good enough. Really good guy though. And they kept Bill Virdon. And Bill was playing shortstop that summer. And then he went back that fall to West Plains. He was the starting quarterback for the West Plains High School. He was a star basketball player. He ran track and field. In the spring of 1949, just before he graduated from high school, they had a track meet somewhere, West Plains, Houston, Missouri, Willis Griggs, all those Mountain View, Missouri, Mountain Grove, Missouri, all those towns. And I think West Plains had 96 total points. And the second place team came in about 60 points. Bill Virdon accounted for 36 points by himself.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's the kind of athlete he was. And he won a scholarship to play high school or college basketball at Drury College, which now is Drury University, where Bob Barker went to college. But he went back out to Clay Center to play another summer of baseball out there. And I think legendary agent for the New York Giants or the Yankees were out there. Tom Greenway must have scouted him. And so they invited him to attend a tryout camp down in Branson, Missouri that the Yankees did at Maine Field as a 2-week tryout camp. I think they invited about 125 guys, and I believe they signed 8 at the end of the 2 weeks. And Bill and his good friend Bill Wright were signed by the Yankees coming out of that camp. In May of that year, Tom Greenway had signed this little guy from northeast Oklahoma by the name of Nicky Mantle. And they gave him about a $1,500 signing bonus. Well, Tom Greenway gave Bill Virdon a $1,800 signing bonus just a few months later. Bill went ahead and played his semester, that fall semester of 49 basketball. Then he took off to play in the minors in Independence, Kansas. Next slide. So he had a very remarkable career. I'm going to talk about more of this, but this kind of shows you him over time as a player, coach, and a manager. Next slide. And this is Bill and Shirley. They were married 70 years. And they just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary a week before Bill passed. It was November 17th, 2021, and Bill passed the following Tuesday morning early. And this is his family. I took this picture, and that's Linda on the left, Shirley, Lisa, and Deborah, and then of course Bill. Over here, this is Bill and Shirley about a month after they got married. This would have been taken in West Plains. I took this picture of them in front of what used to be called the Model Drugstore in West Plains. It's now a law office. And so I had these folding chairs and they sit out here and we reminisced a little bit about how Shirley saw Bill leaning up against this post, which is probably wood at the time, it's caked in metal now. And he was drinking a soda of some sort. And these students that were taking Shirley of them, she didn't have a car. It was her first year teaching school, high school English. Oh, Miss Shimwell, there's somebody you have to meet. And that's Bill Virdon. And she said, well, just take me home. Well, they took her home, and then those kids went back there and picked up Bill and brought him back up to Shirley's apartment that she shared with a physical education teacher. They were married 6 weeks later. And so they got married on November 17th, 1951. Well, before that, Bill had gone down, I think the next chart they did, we'll jump ahead to them. I'd like for Joe to play this video clip with Ned Reynolds, a legendary sportscaster in Springfield. And I think Tal and maybe Dirk both met him. I believe he is at the Bill's funeral.
Where's it at?
Well, it should be, right? You should be able to click right on.
Right on the presentation.
Yeah, right on.
Right on the presentation?
Yeah.
All right.
Brian.
Ned Reynolds, we're going to provide a little bit of the background for the book going to Bill Virdon. Bill's impact in baseball has been underrated. This man has done a lot and has influenced a lot of people. Oh, I remember when Bill was named the manager of the Houston Astros. The night that the announcement was made, he was attending a Bears basketball game in Hammond Center. And the PA announcer said, folks, we have the new manager of the Houston Astros here, Bill Virdon, if you will stand up. And here you have maybe, 4,500, 5,000 people in the arena. Bill, everybody knew where he was sitting. And he stands up and the fans, that's the kind of impact that he had. Everybody knew him. And that in and of itself, I think resonates so positively with everybody here. This is a little interesting little trivia point about Bill Virdon is that he is the only Yankees manager in history never to have managed a game in Yankee Stadium. That was because during that 2-year process that he was manager, the Yankee Stadium was being refurbished. So their home games were played at Shea Stadium in New York. And then when it came time for them to move to Yankee Stadium, Bill got canned for Billy Martin. Bill had good teams for the Yankees. They might not have been in the World Series, but Steinbrenner, who was a kind of a knee-jerk owner, good owner, I'm quite sure, but he wanted Billy Martin in there, and Bill Virdon had to pay the price for that. But Bill went on to manage the Astros, got them into the playoffs. Bill was very astute in his knowledge of baseball and very dedicated to his formula to how you win. And it showed with the way he played and the way he managed and coached. This brings to mind and brings to the attention of the public how very important a figure he was and how much of an impact he had on the game and on the public. And therein, I think, lies very much the credibility behind writing a book of this nature.
Next slide. Next slide, please. I was driving up to Columbia, Missouri in November, just before Thanksgiving in 19, and it just dawned on me. I said, why hasn't anybody written a book about Bill Virdon? And so I immediately did something you're not supposed to do. I called somebody on my cell phone when I was driving. It was the seniors director at our church, Rick Westfall. And I asked Rick, I said, has anybody ever thought about writing a biography on Bill? He said, well, Shirley and Bill were approached by 2 or 3 people. They turned them down because they didn't really understand what their motives were. And I said, well, why don't you ask them if they would let me do it? And there's a long pause. He said, okay. Well, the next week they came back and they said, yes, and I about fell over. And so when I realized what I've got, when I realized that, yeah, they put me to do it, I started doing my research on Bill Virdon. I knew who Bill Virdon was going back to when he was the Yankees manager. I certainly watched every game of the World Series in 1971 when the Bucks played the Orioles. But I knew Danny Birdball and I knew Earl Weaver, but I didn't know who the bench coach was sitting there on the Pirates bench. But I knew who the Yankee skipper was in 1974 and 75. And I certainly knew him as the Orioles or the Astros manager when he would come in from Houston, and Ned Reynolds, the gentleman there, would interview him either at the airport in KY3 studio. And I used to get home from work. I was just out of college. And I would listen to those interviews. And so I knew who Bill Virdon was. But I didn't really know who Bill Virdon was until I started doing my research. I was overwhelmed by what he had accomplished in his life. And I looked at my wife and I said, what did I get myself into? And I can tell you that about that same time, my textbook came out in 2019. I was a political science professor for a while, and book came out, and I gave it to Shirley so I could print her and I could put a sentence together. And, in January, at church, Bill and Shirley were there for Seniors Thursday, where they'd have a luncheon and some educational programs. And I don't know if you've ever, how many of you have ever met Bill Virdon personally or seen him? I know there's two people at least. How many people, anybody ever meet? Well, he had a very patented look. And if he gave you a look that only Bill Virdon could give you. And so Shirley was over kind of fixing him a tray of food, and Bill was looking right at me, and I didn't realize he was looking at me until I turned to look at him. It was that look. And so I walked over to him, and before I could say anything, he says, "You think you can get this done?" And I said, "Bill, did you ever go into a game as a player, coach, or manager thinking you're going to lose?" And he said, "Never." I said, "Well, that's how I feel." He said, "That's how I feel." So on January 30th, we started our interviews at their lovely home in South Springfield. COVID did kind of interrupt because I was really concerned about their health. And I didn't want to be responsible for taking something to them. But Shirley and I decided that my wife and I, we weren't out visiting with anybody, and I know, and they weren't. So Shirley said, "Let's just continue this, we'll be fine." So we did. October 21, all the chapters were done. And Bill had the opportunity to look at them, so that Shirley, all three of their daughters got to look at them. Cal Smith was gracious enough to write the foreword to the book, which I'm forever grateful. Larry Dierker, contributed significantly to the chapter pertaining to the Astros. And so it was a lot of fun. And also, when he was the manager in 1997, in the fall of 96, Bill had been a coach in the Pirates organization under Jim Leland. And that fall, Shirley and Bill were at home, and Cal had called Dirk over to the pavilion, and of course Dirk was a sportscaster back then. Is that right? Sportscaster. And Larry thought that he was being called over to be a consultant on something. Well, he gets over there, and Cal had something else in mind, and said about being the manager of the Astros. And I think Cal offered, said, "If I can get Bill Virdon to be your bench coach, how would that make you feel?" or something to that effect. So they turned right around and immediately called Bill in Springfield, and Bill's only words were, "I'm in." And so he was Larry Dirk's bench coach during the 97 season. So November 17th is Bill and Shirley's 70th wedding anniversary. My publisher sent me an email saying, "David, we've got to ask you to write a preface to the book. Can you come up with a couple of pages in the next few days?" I said, "No, I can come up with several pages in the next few days." And so within 24 hours, I wrote 7 pages. And I sent it to him after I read it. I had a friend read it a couple of times. And I sent it to him, I think, Thursday evening, maybe it was Friday morning. And they approved it on Monday morning. And Monday afternoon, I took it over to Bill and Shirley's, and I read the preface to the book. And I was with them from 1 o'clock until 5 o'clock that afternoon. And Bill liked it, Shirley liked it, and then Bill passed away the next morning between 7 and 7:30. So he got to see the entire book completed, except for the epilogue. And I wrote that evening that I was with the Virdon family the entire day after his passing, including at the hospital, the funeral home, the church, late lunch. I did a radio interview at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, talking about his passing. My wife was in Kansas City doing something. And I went into my den and wrote the epilogue to the book, and that wrapped up everything. So he got to see the book complete. He got to celebrate his 70th wedding anniversary with his lovely wife, Shirley. And he lived a wonderful life. Next slide, please. We talked about Clay Center already, the tryout camp down in Mainfield, Independence, Kansas. The player coach out there was a gentleman by the name of Bunny Mick. And Bunny decided Bill didn't need to be the shortstop anymore. He wanted him to play center field, so he stuck him out in center field, and that's where Bill would play the rest of his career. And so he went out there in 50, came home. I think he drove a propane truck or something in the office because he had to make money. And then he goes out to Norfolk, Virginia, and plays for the Tars out there. And that's where I think he meets Whitey Herzog, who we just lost recently for the first time. And Whitey, in his book, White Rat, made a very similar statement about Bill that Bill would make about Mickey Mantle a year or so later. Whitey said, as long as Bill Virdon was playing center field, I wasn't going to get the opportunity to play much. And so Bill comes back and after the season's over with, Don Cordell was the president of the West Plains Chamber of Commerce. And he wants him to go down to Salem, Arkansas and play in a fundraiser game so they can install lights in the ball field. Well, Preacher Rowe, who I'm writing about now, was there to raise money. He was with the Brooklyn Dodgers at that point. 1951 was Preacher Rowe's best year. I think he had an 88% win-loss record, 22 wins, 3 losses that year. So it was a really good year. And the very first quote in the book is, John Cordell had brought a boy with him. I didn't know him from Adam, but he played center field. Someone hit one off at me. The center field, of course, with great ease, caught it. I asked John who he was. He said it was Bill Virdon. And so Preacher would go on and say that he wasn't surprised he made it to the majors. We've already talked about the very next month is when Bill and Shirley met one another, and 6 weeks later they got married. Next chart. This is Bill out in Independence, Kansas. There's Bill right here. Couple funny stories. I guess they went skinny dipping in the public pool at night. I guess they got caught, but I don't think anybody said anything. Boys will be boys, I guess. But anyway, next story. Bill didn't talk about that much for some reason. In 1952, Bill and Shirley get married. Shirley is going to teach her only year of high school English, and then she's going to join her husband up in Binghamton, New York. And in Binghamton, New York, his friend, Mel Wright, and his wife Joanne are up there, and Joanne's the first friend that Shirley makes in professional baseball. Deborah was born in September of that year, so she goes up there pretty pregnant during the summer, and she has to come home early. In 1953, Harry Kraft was managing the AAA affiliate for their Yankees in Kansas City. Somewhere along the line, Harry Kraft noticed that Bill was wincing when he read something. And because he wasn't really hitting well at the plate, he was doing all right on the defensive side, but he wasn't doing well at the plate. And so he sent him to an optometrist there in Kansas City, and sure enough, Bill needed glasses. So it was too late in the season for him to finish in Kansas City, and they shipped him down to Birmingham to finish out the season. Well, somebody was scouting him down in, of course, Hal Smith was just 70 miles west of here, Columbus, Texas. Somebody from the part of a Yankees organization was scouting pretty heavy, so they invited him to spring training down in Florida. Casey Stengel was the manager of the team. He was out in the outfield with Hank Bauer, Irv Noren, 2 or 3 other guys, and this guy named Mickey Mantle. And Bill said he knew that as long as Mickey Mantle was playing, they already had their outfield established. They were just kind of fielding Bill out, but Bill knew he wouldn't have a chance as long as Mickey Mantle was there. But Bill said they were taking turns. Gene Woodland's the other guy I was trying to think of. They were out there taking turns fielding balls. They were doing infield practice, and they had a hitting coach hitting balls to the outfield so they could get some work in too. It was Bill's turn to catch the ball. Well, he didn't. Bill was all business on the field, and so he's getting that ball as quickly as he can, get it back to the cutoff man. He didn't realize that Casey Stengel had got between him and the cutoff man. And Stingel's back was to Bill. And he nails, Casey right between the 3 and the 7 and knocked him down. And Mickey Mantle, Gene Woodling, Herb Lauren, Hank Bauer, they all hit the dirt. And they were pointing his finger up at Bill. Bill doesn't know if the cause and effect was, what happened next, but he did get traded to the Cardinals about 2 weeks later. He was on the way back to Kansas City, and Shirley was packed up and ready to go back to Kansas City, for AAA ball, and she was told in the route that, oh no, I'm going to Rochester, New York. In Rochester, Bill had an outstanding career. He was the International League hitting champion that year. It was the best hitting season he had. The Cardinals thought so much of it, they told him to go down to Cuba for winter ball. That's where he met Kenny Boyer. They became good friends down there. Bill had an outstanding winter ball season in Cuba. And he brought him right back to St. Louis, and he never go back down to the minors again. 1955, he was the next slide. He was the 1955 Rookie of the Year with the Cardinals. You know, he taught the world of Stan Musial, Wally Moon, Rip McCroskey, and Harry Elliott are in that picture. I don't know how they did that with the camera technology back then, but they did it. But there was a general manager by the name of Frank Trader Lane. And Bill was the 1955, he was the 1955 Rookie of the Year. Who trades the Rookie of the very next year? Well, Trader Lane does. He traded Red Shane Dees, and he was going to trade he was even thinking about trading Stan Musial. Then Gussie Bush, the owner of the Cardinals, said, stop, no more trading until you come through me first. And but it's too late. Well, when Bill was traded, him and Kenny Boyer were roommates. And they found out late at night that he was being traded to the Pirates for Bobby Del Greco, who was a center fielder for the Pirates. There's some more in that trade on Littlefield and some others. But Shirley was in the hospital with her daughter, Debbie, who was having a tonsillectomy and popping her glove. And so it was early in the morning, and Debbie's there. And so they had these music boxes on the rails of the hospital beds back then. And I think you just put a nickel or a dime in there and play music. Well, to kind of put Debbie at ease, she put a point in there. And the very first thing that Shirley heard, the 1955 NL Rookie of the Year, Bill Virdon, has been traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And that's how Shirley found out. And so she goes running out the room. And her mother sitting out there, the former minor league baseball pitcher was out there. And did you hear? And she, yeah, we heard him. We just didn't want to upset you by letting you know. And the reason Bill didn't call her the night before, he knew that she was taking Debbie to the hospital. He didn't want to upset her. So anyway, they were planning to stay in St. Louis for a career, but that didn't work out that way. 1956, Bill got kind of off, and one of the reasons I think Lane would traded him is he was impressed by Bobby Del Greco, I think, hitting 2 home runs in the same game. And I guess that was enough to impress him to trade Bill for it. Well, Bobby Del Greco didn't have a very good career in St. Louis, as it turned out. Bill, on the other hand, did pretty well in 56 for the Pirates. He came in right behind Hank Aaron. I think Hank Aaron had 328 that year. Bill was at 317, so he finished second for the hitting title that year in the National League. So that was a good year for Bill. That was the second best year behind the International League in Rochester. 1960 World Series. Pirates shouldn't have won that World Series. If you look at the run scored between the Yankees, I mean, and the Pirates, it's like a 4-1. But the key plays made the difference in the outcome of that World Series. And I will submit to you that Bill Virdon deserved a lot of that credit. In the first game, Yogi Berra hit what would have been a certain double. There's 2 on base. I think Roger Maris, and I can't remember who the other one was, they were on base. And Bill Virdon, and Roberto Clemente were basically vying for that fly ball. And Bill's right cleat actually cut into the leather of Roberto Clemente's left shoe as they were competing for that ball, and Bill caught it. And if they would have scored, that those two runners would have scored, that would have made the difference in the outcome of that game. That was Lisa Virdon's birthday. I mean, that was her first birthday. She was born in 1959. That was her first birthday. Another very competitive, another decisive game that Bill was really instrumental in being a part of was in Game 4, the 7th inning, particularly Bob served. It also what should have been a certain double, but he had that ball nailed from the beginning, and Roberto Clemente's more in the foreground in any picture you'd see, and Bill's kind of back there by himself. And then Bill counted, I think, for 2 of the 3 runs in that 3-2 victory over the Yankees that game. So on both sides of the ball, he had a really good game in Game 4. Game 7, the bottom of the 8th, Tony Kubek got it in the throat on a Bill, what should have been a certain double play. I think Dick Grove was on first base. Maybe it wasn't Dick, I can't remember. It should have been Dick, because Dick came in behind Bill. Anyway, somebody's on first base. It should have been a clear double play. And somebody says it bounced off a rock. I can't imagine a rock being on an infield like that, but maybe back then it could have been. It bounced up and hit Tony Kubek in the throat and basically caused him to be taken out of the game. And Bill made it safely to first base. And Hal Smith hit a 3-run homer. And then we know what happened at the bottom of the 9th with Bill Mazeroski with a walk-off homer to win the World Series. Kind of cut it through there. Bill probably should have won more Gold Gloves than the single Gold Glove he won in 1962. You read historians, they would say the same thing. I'm not going to lament over that in any way, neither would Bill. And he retired at the end of the 65 season. Fall of 64, he was back home in Springfield. He looked at Shirley, he says, I think next year is going to be my final year. I can kind of feel myself not playing up to what I expect of me. So I think next year's going to be it. Sure enough, it was. Next slide. When the World Series moved to New York in the 1960 World Series, each team had to provide a player to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. How many of you ever remember the Ed Sullivan Show? Well, standing right behind this curtain is Shirley Virdon and Dr. Marvin Fowler and his wife Betty, who we lost not too long ago. And of course, we lost Shirley in March. They're standing back there behind the curtain. This is Gil McDougall, the 3rd baseman for the Yankees. And Bill, that's a pretty typical expression for Bill. He probably, I don't know. I've been trying to find a clip of that. Has anybody ever seen a clip of that, Dirk or Tal? Because I'd love to see what Bill had to say, because it had to be only 1 or 2 words. Speaking of that, I know Dirk told me one time when I was interviewing for this book that he had Bill on his radio show for an hour. And he had like 80 questions for him, because Bill would only give him 1 or 2 word answers. He'd have to go through the whole list. In September of 60, this is Shirley with the 3 daughters. That would be Debbie, Linda, and Lisa. Like I said, Lisa would just be shy of her first birthday. Debbie was born in 52, and Linda was born in 54. And I just love that picture of those 4 ladies. I had to have it for the presentation. Picture. There's the catch, and this is the larger than life statue at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and this is a replica of that. And there's that Bob serve catch that I was telling you about. You see Roberto Clemente in the foreground, and Bill's back there by himself. Making that catch. And to me, that was a remarkable catch too. Bill said that was the far more athletic catch than the one against Yogi Berra in the first game. Next chart. And there's Willie Stargell and Roberto Clemente. This would have been close to Bill's last year as a player, probably 1965 or so, maybe could have been 64, but I'm thinking it's 65 by the look on his face. Next up. So they didn't, Joel Brown, the general manager for the Pirates, didn't make room for Bill to be a coach on the staff, or I think they offered him some kind of a minor league position, but Bill said no, and somewhere along the line, he got an offer to coach the farm system for the Mets, and so he went up to Williamsport for the AA affiliate, and that's where he met Nolan Ryan for the first time. Nolan came in there with the idea that he would only pitch 5 innings, and then he'd go over to New York to join the big guys for a road trip. And so at the end of the 5th inning, he was pitching a no-hitter. And Bill simply asked him, said, you want to finish this thing out? He said, well, if it's all right with you, Mr. Virdon, I just didn't go to New York. Bill said, I wish you the best. And Nolan went to New York. The very next year, Nolan was with him in Jacksonville, the AAA affiliate. And Shirley was the only thing that Shirley remembers is, why do you get married during the middle of a season? And Nolan and Ruth decided to get married on June 26, 1967. And Shirley just didn't think that was right. So I doubt that I'll bring that up with Nolan. Amos Otis is another person that I used to watch play with the Royals. Of course, Tug McGraw is another pitcher for Jacksonville. Next chart. 1968 was a really tough year. The Vietnam War was decimating the minor leagues benches, and it was just really brutal. Somewhere along the line, Bill said, you know, why don't you put me in? I can fill a gap or something. So they did, and Joel Brown, the general manager, didn't want Bill in there himself because he had been playing and all that. He said, no, I'm going to play. So he played for 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks of July. Now, I think he went to the plate 3 times during that time. Well, the last time he went to the plate, he had a home run that basically took it into extra innings. It was against Cincinnati. And I believe they were playing at Ford Field, and at the bottom of the ninth takes it into extra innings. They were behind in 98, now it's 99, but then they lost in the 10th inning. That was his last time ever at the plate. World Series champions in 1971. There he is with his mentor, Danny Murtaugh, who he just thought the world of. Here's Bill leading them on the team when he became manager later. In 1971, Danny Murtaugh's health wasn't all that good. He would eventually pass away, I believe, in 1976, when Bill was managing the Astros. Am I at 3 hours yet? Okay. 1976, he went back to his funeral. But anyway, 1971, Danny Murtaugh wasn't doing well. Bill did the lineup cards. He did a lot of the stuff that a manager, I guess, would normally do. But Bill would never want to take anything away from Danny Murtaugh, and I'm not about to do that tonight, because he just thought so much of it. But Bill did do a lot as a bench coach in 1971. He was named Pirate manager after the season. And this book would come out describing the 1972 season as the Pirates being the classiest team in baseball. And as Bill Virdon's picture up here. And a lot of people would say, well, he's just resting on the laurels of what Danny Murtaugh had built. Okay, but that was Bill's team. I mean, it was Bill Virdon's team in 1972, as it would be in 1973. Fired in 1973, he went by Joel Brown's office on the way to play handball, and come to find out, after the fact, that Joel Brown was actually on the phone talking to Danny Murtaugh about coming back as the manager. Bill didn't know that. So he went back and went on to play his handball, came back, got called in the Joel Brown's office and was fired. They unloaded his stuff off the bus because I think they were getting ready to go to Philadelphia to play the Phillies. And he didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to his players. And so he was summarily fired. Joel Brown would later regret firing Bill Virdon from that position. So in 1973, they go down to winter baseball here in Houston. And that's when he meets Tal Smith, and that's when Shirley meets her very good friend to be, Johnny, Tal's wife. And Johnny and Shirley made a comment, they were sitting at the same luncheon table or dinner table or something, and says, too bad that you're going to Denver, and we're going to New York, and we're going to be separated. Because Bill was going to go out and manage the AAA affiliate in Denver for the Astros. But that changed. Real late December, had to be late December, he was called, by Gabe Paul, in New York to come in, maybe it was, McFadden, Gabe Paul. Had, offered him to come out and interview, and Shirley told him, before he left Springfield, said, remember that money's not everything. And so I think it was January 3rd, he gets out there and they're negotiating his salary and other deals. Apparently, George Steinbrenner was supposed to have been, George Steinbrenner wanted Dick Williams, but he couldn't get him out from under Charlie Finley from the Oakland A's. And so Gabe Paul offered it to Bill after the negotiated salary and that type of thing. Well, the morning of January 4th, you can see next row, I'm sorry. Keep going. You can see Bill sitting next to George Steinbrenner here. And George Steinbrenner, I couldn't tell whether he looked happy or not. But apparently he was very upset with Gabe Paul for hiring Bill Virdon, even though he apparently gave Gabe Paul the green light to hire Bill Virdon. So I'm not sure the exact story on that. I didn't push Tal Smith very much on that. He was in the executive suite himself at that time. But Bill had a pretty good deal going with the Yankees. Ralph Houck was the manager. He basically left at the end of the season when they were going to demolish the Yankee Stadium. People were taking the seats out of the stadium. Ralph Houck was getting kind of irritated on how intrusive Steinbrenner was, and he just had enough. And he was very much a player's manager, and he's pretty emotional, I think, when he left. And I just had dinner the other night, I believe, with Ralph Houck's great niece or something like that. I believe it was, and she was really happy to see that I wrote favorably about him anyway. So anyway, Bill, he gets the job, and the reason I wanted this picture here is, that's Willie Stargell and Richie Hebner, and Bill as the Yankee skipper sitting between them. One of the things that happened with Bill as a Pirates manager, and it maybe caused Joel Brown to have one more data point for a reason to fire Bill, I don't know. Bill took Richie Hebner played third base. He's also called the grave digger because he dug graves in the offseason. He took him off third base and benched him. Well, Hebner was really, really mad. And he started cussing at Bill. And Bill said, you can call me, he told his players all along, he said, you can call me anything you want, but you will not call me this. And I'm not going to tell you what this is. But anyway, Hebner was stewing. And so after the game, Bill goes down the tunnel, and of course, Hebner's come up behind him and not using very favorable terms, and follows Bill into his office. And he calls him that, and then turns around and walks away, and goes and sits in front of his rocking chair in front of his locker. Well, Bill's following him. And Bill says, and of course, Joel Brown's there, the media's there, everybody, Al Oliver's there, because Al Oliver confirmed it with me that that's what happened. And Bill says, stand up and call me that. Well, Richie Hebner never stood up. And I said, Al, what would have happened if he did? He said, Bill would have knocked his head off. But anyway, that a couple weeks later is when Bill got fired. But there were no hard feelings. Bill never held any grudges with anybody. Next slide. Houston Astros. There's a lot I can say about the Houston Astros and Bill's time with the Astros. I know that those two gentlemen can say a lot more than I can. But it was quite a career. I mean, given where they started from in the fall of '75, Bill comes in with, 34 games remaining in the season, replaces Preston Gomez. I know Tal, and I don't want to put words in Tal, he's really coming out of the book. Tal left New York and I think August 7th or something like that, and came down to Houston. He knew that something was going to happen because you can't have a season going on like that unless you almost have to have a reason. You have to have, it's necessary to make a change. So he was going to evaluate Preston Gomez for a while. And after a couple of weeks, he knew he had to make a change in the manager's position, and he did. And so he knew Bill was out of the job, obviously, because Cal and Johnny and Shirley and Bill were all at their house that night after Bill was fired when they were playing the Cleveland Indians, I think on August 1st, and then they brought in Billy Martin. Bill comes down to Houston, 34 games left. They finished under Bill, they finished 17-17 on the season, and it only goes up from there. And I can tell you that that was one of the quickest turnarounds for a franchise, and I think in Major League Baseball history, with everything else being equal. You know, the only team that had a worse record at that point were the Detroit Tigers. And so it turned out pretty well for those two gentlemen and their leadership that this franchise over the 5 or 6 year period. He was a Sporting News NL Manager of the Year in 1980. He was the 74 AL Sporting News Manager of the Year with the Yankees. Bill was fired in 1982. You know, Bill, I don't want to say anything about John McMullen, but John McMullen didn't know what RBI stood for. He was the owner of the team. And I think, and I was talking to Kenny Hand, and he told me a lot of these stories because Kenny heard them firsthand. And he said, Kenny told me, he said, John asked me, he said, what's a farm club? What do we do on the farm? What are we doing with the farm? And so, anyway, but you know, John McMullen was a naval architect. I mean, he was a Naval Academy graduate, you know, PhD, whatever. I mean, he wasn't, but he didn't know apparently much about baseball. I guess, I think because of his former friend, or maybe his friend George Steinbrenner had a team, he thought he had to have a team. Maybe that's the way it was. And I think one of the quotes from John McMullen was, "There's nothing like being a minor partner than being a minor partner under George Steinbrenner." So he came out and bought the Astros from Ford Motor Credit in July of 1979. I thought Tal and Bill made a pretty good team up to July 1979 with what they had to work with, given the financial distress on that team at the time. So anyway, Bill was fired in 1982. Al Rosen was not a very popular person as the general manager when he came on board in 1980. I'm not going to go into that detail. And Bill was replaced by Bob Lewis. We left, and Bob would stay for a few years after that. Slide. I think I'm getting close to 3 hours. 1980 was a remarkable season for the Astros. They just swept the Braves in Atlanta, and they had a 92-67 season, and they all they had to do is go out to Los Angeles and win one game against the Dodgers. Well, they couldn't get that one game bought. And so they actually had to extend the season so they could go play the Philadelphia Phillies for the NLCS. As perhaps one of the most exciting series in Major League Baseball history. There's a picture that I didn't include here, but I got it. It's Bill standing on the dugout with 1 foot out of the dugout, and his players kind of on either side of him with a very distressed look on their face because they knew that this is all slipping away from them. They were 6 outs away from going to the World Series against the Royals in 1980. So that. Pardon me? Yeah. And Craig Reynolds, I interviewed for this. I mentioned, I think earlier, Craig had made it to first base, and Pete Rose was playing first base. And Pete Rose made a comment to Craig, and Craig misunderstood him. And Pete said something to the effect that says, "It's too bad one of us have to lose this game." And Craig thought, he said, it's too bad you're gonna lose this game. And Craig was mad at Pete Rose, and I think he asked him to repeat it. And then he was okay, because that's, you know, Pete Rose said, too bad one of us happened. So there, you can kind of read the rest of that there, in the interest of time. Next slide, please. There's Tal and his lovely wife Johnny and Bill and Shirley having a good time. They had many good times together. They traveled on vacations together. They were just really good, close, dear friends. Shirley liked to talk about, and she always laughed. She says, yeah, we would get on the phone with each other, and Bill and Tal would talk for a couple of minutes, and then Johnny and I would take over, and the guys would go their separate ways. Does that sound about right, Tal? That's about right. Right, next one. 1982, Bill wasn't unemployed very long, and then John McHale, the president, there's a board basically that was consisted of the ownership of the Montreal Expos back then. John McHale offered the job to him. They actually made the announcement in St. Louis during the 1982 World Series. They flew down from Montreal for that announcement. In early spring 1983, I wrote a chapter in a book about Mel Wright for famous ball players, professional ball players from Arkansas. Mel was from Stuttgart, Arkansas, out east of Little Rock. Mel was a good friend. Been good friends with Bill since August of 1949. Now we're here in April of 1983 now. Steve Wright, Mel's son, told me the story because he was with the Astros. He actually wore an Astros uniform, worked out with them and everything. Did the same thing with the Pirates and the Yankees and now the Astros, and then the Expos. Mel was out in the outfield in Montreal. I can't remember who they played, but he was out there in the bullpen, and it took him a lot longer to get into the clubhouse than normal because Bill was kind of concerned because usually it's right after the game. Wright would come by Bill's office and do that on his way down to wherever he hung out. And Bill was talking to the media, only one word at a time, and realized that Mel hadn't showed up yet. So when he finally did, he didn't look very good. They were wanting to put him in the hospital right then and there in Montreal. And basically, to quote Steve, he says, "I am not going to die outside of the United States." So they got on a plane, they were going to play the Astros. They came down to Houston, and Mel went right to the hospital and never came in. He died in the middle of May, about 5 days after his birthday in May of 1983. Devastated Bill. Absolutely devastated. And someone said that's the first time they ever seen Bill Virdon cry is when he was cleaning out his friend's locker in Montreal. Al Oliver said it devastated him. I talked to Steve Rogers. He said the same thing. And I talked to Mike Stenhouse, and they said that death really impacted Bill a great deal. People that played for Bill up there, like, Terry Francona, he just retired recently. Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, Gary Carter, Al Oliver, Steve Rogers, Pete Rose. Thing about Pete Rose, Bill was really impressed with Pete showing up early every day. And then going into the visitors clubhouse, and he just thought, man, this guy's really intense. And then after the game was over, he'd still be over there doing something off to the side. You never could figure out what he was doing. Bill made a comment that says, "What do you think about Pete playing left field?" He said, "Well, I guess he's not doing too bad on 44-year-old legs." And Pete Rose found out about it. Said, "My legs are only 43 years old." But by that time, he couldn't really get the ball in from the outfield. And I think Terry Francona was going to be the first baseman. So, he was there to put butts in seats. I think is really why they wanted to up there. Bill announced he would retire after the season. He told John McHale that he thinks that he couldn't figure out how to fix the Expos. Is really what it came down to. There were some problems on that roster. not gonna mention any names, but there were some problems on that roster that he just couldn't fix, and he got frustrated. It was 1984, he told John McHale, so I'm not coming back, and he went to the board and they decided to fire me. He gets home, he gets home, and early the next year, in 85, Buddy Herzog, the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals now, said, "Bill, would you come down to spring training and be a hitting instructor?" And he said, "Sure, I'll come down." Then he kind of took the rest of 85 off. And that fall, the Pirates decided they wanted to hire this guy named Jim Leland to manage the Pirates. And the manager said, "What if we can get Bill Virdon to be your bench coach?" Because Jim Leland had no managerial experience. He coached a little bit under his friend, Tony La Russa, but he had never really managed anything. And so, yeah, if you can get Bill to come in and be my bench coach, sure. So he did, and he was with Leland, not as a bench coach all the time, but certainly as a coach in the organization through 1996. Some of you may remember the run-in between Jim Leland and Barry Bonds in 1992. Well, that all was caused by Bill basically getting in Barry's face. What had happened was Barry, and I'm just going to Reader's Digest this. Barry is out there, and he wanted his own public affairs person to interact with the media. He didn't want the media directly talking to him, and he was getting upset with it. Well, Bill saw that, and he goes over to Barry and says, "Listen," because he knew Barry since he was a little kid, because when Bill was a skipper for the manager, Bobby Bonds, his dad played for him. So he knew Barry since he was a little kid. So he goes over to him and said, "Now, listen, those guys got a job to do. You've got a job to do. You just need to work with it." And I guess Barry went off on him. But anyway, somebody goes over to Leland and says, "Hey, skipper, Barry's over disrespecting Virdon." Well, Leland comes over and kind of circles around like a vulture, because there's this group kind of closed in there. Then all of a sudden he goes right in. You can't, it gets bleeped out a lot when Jim's talking to Barry Bonds. Well, anyway, that's what kind of happened. Pardon me?
There's a lot of beats.
Yeah, there were a lot of beats. So he goes through 96, and then we talked about Dirk's visit to the pavilion in the fall of 96, and Bill was with Dirk for a year as a bench coach. It was really interesting, Dirk's perspective on a former Major League Baseball pitcher and somebody that's a position player, looking at the game from two different perspectives. I've really learned a lot of good things about that as a result of that conversation with her, that's for sure. Then he went back and coached under Gene Lamont with the Pirates. And Lloyd McClendon, where he wrapped up his career with the Pirates in 2001, 2000. McClendon had some wonderful stories. I mean, when he was a player, when Bill was coaching, Bill liked to work people with this thing called the fungo bat. And he worked their tails on. And down in spring training, when Leland was managing, if you got left behind and didn't go to another team to play, like, they were at Bradenton, they didn't, they went over to Cocoa Beach or wherever. The players knew that they were going to be left behind. Bill Virdon was going to be working their tail off of that fungo bat. And so that's what happened. And McClendon went into Leland's office and says, "Please, skipper, take me. He's going to kill me if I stay here." Nice little story about a sports writer from Kansas City that went down when Bill was first managing the Yankees. He goes down to Fort Lauderdale for the spring training, and he thinks he arrives at the wrong ballpark because no one's there. And he was getting ready to leave. Then all of a sudden he sees these black ball caps coming over. I guess the only hill there is in Florida. I mean, there's the black ball caps coming over this little hill, and people were sweating and throwing up and falling down. And here comes Bill whistling, carrying the fungo bat. He's been out there working their tails off. That's Marty Edelman at Sports Writer. And I talked to Clint Hurdle about fantasy camps and spring training. Bill and Shirley were sitting outside the offices there in Pittsburgh when Clint Hurdle got fired. And as far as I know, that was the last time they went to Pittsburgh, when Clint Hurdle was released by the Pirates. Bill was inducted in Sports Hall of Fame in 1983 as a player and coach and manager, inducted as a legend, and that's the statue there. And he also has a bust. In 2012, that was, in 2017, this was christened. Next slide. And there's his bust, making him a legend. And this is the person you saw in the video a few minutes ago, several hours ago, Ned Reynolds. Next slide. And there's Bill's display case at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. You can see the Astros are prominently displayed. And this is the guy just staring into that booth. There were some quotes there. Lou Piniella, I thought, was really classy in what he had to say about Bill when they went to the 1976 World Series. They didn't win that game, that World Series, but Lou Piniella made one thing very clear. He said, "Let there be no misunderstanding. The reason we're here is what Bill Virdon did for us when he was managing this team." And so by that time, obviously, Billy Martin was the manager. Quotes from Jim Leland, basically giving Bill credit for making Barry Bonds the left fielder that he became. So that let there be no misunderstanding. Bill Virdon made Barry Bonds the great left fielder that he is. Roberto Clemente basically said the reason Bill Virdon never gets any credit, he makes playing center field look too easy. And Whitey Herzog, he said, "It's always a pleasure to compete against a man like that because you know you're going to have your hands full because he would be over in that other dugout making all the right moves." Next slide. And you can see one from Dirk there. You can see one from Tal Smith, Al Oliver, and Steve Blass. Steve Blass was a booth interview as well in Pittsburgh. Next slide. This was taken in May of 2021. These kids were absolutely excited to see a former Major League Baseball player from their hometown. And those kids just couldn't believe what he had accomplished. And so that was a really neat experience. Next. This is his birthday on June 9th, 2021, his 90th birthday at Springfield Cardinals Hammons Field. I just gotten back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I interviewed Steve Blass and others. And that was a wonderful, beautiful outing, recognizing Bill. Next. And that's a picture I took with the family in 2020. Always brought him a milkshake from Mom's. He loved those. Next. There are some people with notable interviews that I did throughout the process. I say I did the interviews. If it wasn't for that man and his wife, I would never have had that kind of contact with anybody of that stature, of those at that level. Just an honor. Next, click on that, please.
Click on this.
He played football. He played basketball. He ran track. Didn't have organized baseball here at the high school at that time, but he played summer baseball. There was four different sports and made it to the pros. That said something about his athletic ability, number one, but also said something about athletes are athletes. There's a class guy right there.
This man has done a lot and has influenced a lot of people. It should be of a focus in the country, and it's not, and it's a shame. It should be. This brings to mind and brings to the attention of the public how very important a figure he was and how much of an impact he had on the game and on the public. And therein, I think, lies very much the credibility behind writing a book of this nature.
Two quick things. You saw Thurman Munson in that video clip. Thurman made a comment, says, Virdon goes days without even saying a word to me. And I talked to Bill about that. I said, did Thurman you have a problem with Thurman? He said, no, I thought he was a great catcher. I said, well, why didn't you say things to him days on? He said, well, if he wasn't doing anything wrong, I didn't have anything to say to him. I want to thank my son-in-law, Mark Topping, and his good friends with Channel 4 in Kansas City, John Hyduck. They did the videos for me, and they're sending me some more raw footage that they didn't include in the final clips, but I just want to give them recognition for doing those. Our son-in-law was the video coach for the Kansas City Royals for 18 years, and he got the World Series ring against the Mets and everything, and so just anyway, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Try to. William, right?
That's right, so, actually, so,
Pardon me?
you mentioned that, Bill went to Shirley University, right?
Right, we grew at college back then, yes.
Right, so, I actually looked at Wikipedia page for your basketball.
Right, he has a display case there.
So, put this in perspective, when you see their former gym, the wider gymnasium, which is for men's wrestling, that was only a few years old, maybe only a year or two.
Right.
So, that's just a cool comment.
Yeah, well, I think, thank you for pointing that out, yeah. Steve, anybody else have a question? Yes, sir.
Question, he was great, he thinks about, why do you think he only won one gold glove?
Roberto Clemente said it made it look too easy. And back then, Pittsburgh was not a big media market and wasn't like New York or the other bigger markets. And Bill never advocated for himself. And Bill was not flamboyant. He wasn't a show person. All he did was go out there and do his job the best he could. I'm not suggesting that Willie Mays was flamboyant and overly boastful or anything like that. That's not where I'm going. I don't know the true answer to that question, other than the fact he deserved more credit than what he was given. Yes, sir.
Actually, you didn't mention, you touched on a little bit, but the Yankees clearly, the World Series, they had strong offense. But the Pirates have best defense in baseball.
Oh, yes, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you said something about it already, but did he have a favorite team and favorite city he managed?
He loved the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, and he loved Houston. I'm not trying to pander to you all, but he did hold Houston dear in his heart. But he was closest, I have to tell you, because of his success as a player, as a coach, as a manager. He was really close with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But that's not to say he wasn't close in his emotions or feelings with Houston, because he was. I think he could have done, if you ask him, he could have done without Montreal. And it wasn't, he liked his time in New York. But I think if you put him on the spot in Pittsburgh and Houston, I'm convinced that he would have loved to have stayed in St. Louis as a player. I mean, that's where they were wanting to buy a house and everything. But that changed when Trader Lane, Frank Lane traded him. Good question. Yep. Yes, sir. It's east of Springfield, about 2 miles on Highway 60. It's about 3 miles from where my wife and I live. And I think Tal and Dirk have both been there. But it's a beautiful facility. It's well done. And if you're ever in that area, it's worth going in to take a look at. Dirk?
You mentioned, little feeling when it appeared that we might be losing already. The first time that we ever seen him cry. My question is, you writing this book, getting that close to him, and writing the story, did you ever make yourself cry?
When you're in your 60s, you kind of look at things and say, well, I probably made all the closest friends I'm going to make in my life by this point in my life, until I hit the burdens. It was probably, and I think I was mentioning that to somebody earlier, about 4 months after we started this book project in the spring of maybe early summer. Maybe it's about the time I took that picture in April of 2020. After we got through, my wife and I were in there visiting with Shirley, like I said, 2 or 3 times a week or whatever, but Lisa happened to be there and their youngest daughter, and she followed us out to our car in the driveway. And she said, David, can I talk to you for a minute? Now I thought maybe my trouble. And she walks up to me, she says, you know, you're like a son to me. And I couldn't say anything. I had to get in the car and drive away. And doing his funeral was every bit, and you were there in town. It was every bit as difficult as doing my dad's funeral. And doing Shirley's funeral back in March is like losing a mother all over again. So yeah, answer to your question is yes. I mean, I just thought the world of those people. I mean, I didn't deserve the gift that they gave me, their friendship and the honor of doing that biography of Bill Virdon. And I guess I'd just like to emphasize that Bill Virdon needs to be in the Pittsburgh Pirate Hall of Fame. And I hope someday he will be. But they're only doing like 3, you know, they put in Barry Bonds this year. They put in Jim Leland. Who's the third one? I forgot. Anyway, they put in 3 this year. And I was assured that Bill is still being remembered and recognized at that level in Pittsburgh. The winningest manager in Astros history. And it's not only that, ladies and gentlemen, it's this. It's what Tal Smith and Bill Virdon did together in such a short period of time. And this gentleman here pitching a no-hitter on June 9th, 1976. I mean, Bill doesn't get credit for Larry Dierker's success on the mound that day, but they did together. They deserve that kind of, you know, I know Tal's been given that credit already, and well deserved. But I just, you know, Bill would never.
What do you think you said to me after that game?
Nice job.
You know, everybody's running around on the field and staying in the front of the dugout, waiting for me to come off the field. Nice game.
Nice game.
Nice game. Sure. I offered you a bonus and you turned it down. Remember that?
Yeah. You guys needed the money.
But I never did so much homework. You know, I did more homework on this biography than I did for my PhD, and that's saying quite a bit. But because I had to, because Bill, I had to pull it out of him, because he didn't want to thank the Lord for Shirley. I said, Shirley, would you help me out here? Because I had to go out and dig up all the, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles and these interviews. Because Bill was not going to brag on it. Even at 89 and 90 years old, he was not going to brag on himself. And I think that's one of the reasons he's not getting the recognition. Yes, I'm sorry.
He had a career of 50 years,
Yes,
majors and minor league. I don't know how many managerial jobs he had.
4.
Lost count after.
4.
And a life in baseball, you know, that magnitude, but also getting fired there, I guess he fired, be fired at some point.
Bill said,
Life for him and also his family.
well, Bill said, if you cannot handle being fired, being a baseball MLB manager is not your cup of tea. And I won't give you any examples beyond that. Yes, ma'am.
I wondered if you could hold up that picture there and explain who everybody is.
Well, I fell in love with this picture the first time I saw it in Bill and Shirley's game room in their lovely home. And I'll point out the people in this picture in just a second. But my wife and I were given I don't know how to say it. It was always a treat to be at Shirley, and this was after Bill had passed. And so we took her over to Marshfield, Missouri, to the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival. And I think Shirley and I were interviewed that day over there. If you ever want to see, Bill and Shirley and I were interviewed, in the spring of 21, I believe in April of 21. That's still on YouTube, I believe. But anyway, I've always liked this picture. Well, they had an estate auction or estate sale. Someone bought this. And I didn't get a chance to bid on it because we were surely having fun. And so a friend of mine went to a stoop shop, an antique shop, a relic shop or whatever. And he said, and he didn't know I liked this picture. He said, David, there's a great picture, an image over there in this shop for sale. And I said, okay. And so I go running over, and it was this one.
Wow.
And so I whipped out $80 and bought it. And so,
Who's the artist?
his name is, Todd Allen Gold.
And
And
who else?
this is Tony Pacheco, Bob Lillis, who replaced Bill as manager. This is Deacon Jones, and that's Mel Wright. And that guy there is, who.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
From the outside looking in, for that stint in Pittsburgh as manager, seemed a little disrespectful. He said he had a mentor and then he replaced him, but then eventually that he comes back and replaces Bill. Did he feel disrespected? Or
Absolutely
slighted by
not. He loved Danny Murtaugh. And Danny Murtaugh did not want to replace his protege at all. He couldn't understand why Bill was being fired in the first place. But Bill said, as long as it was going to be Danny Murtaugh, I was never going to have a problem with it. And so he did not have, what happened since they didn't let him say goodbye to the player, when Shirley and Bill closed up their house and started heading back to Springfield, they were not allowed to say goodbye to the players, but like I said, they were going to Philadelphia. So they found him on the road at a hotel, and they found Danny Murtaugh having a dinner in a restaurant, hotel restaurant. And Bill went up and said, Danny, you mind if I go to the clubhouse and say goodbye to the guys? He said, sure, Bill. Shirley thinks it was Cincinnati that happened, but I looked at the schedules, the remaining schedules for that year. I think it was really St. Louis, and that would have been made more sense given their drive home to Springfield. But I wasn't going to argue with Shirley Virdon. But he did get it. Danny did let, certainly he was going to let him say goodbye to the guys. Yes, sir.
I just want to revisit the adversity part, because it did seem like he experienced a lot of adversity with the firings, and he presented as a very underspoken individual. He must have had a lot of ambition. I mean, he wasn't just expecting things to be handed to him.
He would
So
never.
how did he level up?
Never expected anything to be handed to him.
Yeah, so how did he level off that ambition to be, manager, start at the Pirates, arrive at the Yankees, face that adversity, rediscovered with the Astros? Yeah, I mean,
What Shirley Virdon would say to that would be, when one door closed, there's always another one that opened up that they never planned on. So there was always something else for them to look forward to. Bill was a hard worker. He took baseball very, very seriously. And he felt that all he had to do is go out there and do his best, and he was going to be rewarded for that. He never lamented on anything that I can remember at all. The only regrets he had an opportunity twice to take his baseball teams to the World Series. And him and I talked about that years ago, and we talked about that about 3 weeks before he died. He said, my biggest regret is not taking my two teams to the World Series.
With another thing that's maybe is mincing words, but I don't associate ambitious with Bill Virdon at all.
And no ego.
Confident.
No, confident, yes. And absolutely no ego. It reminds me of my wife and I received a private tour of the Truman Library. I'm not going to go off on a tangent, so bear with me. That's not going to go into my 3.5 hour time. But my wife and I received a tour of the Truman Library, special one, because I'm writing a novel about a murder that takes place in the Truman Library. And so, we were in there getting a tour, and this guy that's an expert on history, was talking about this guy, this is back in the sixties. I'll try to clean this up. I apologize. But, anyway, he said this guy's, and I talked to Harry Truman's grandson, in April. But anyway, he says this guy breaks down in front of Harry Truman's house in Delaware and Truman Road in Independence, and he walks up to the door, and this is in the sixties. He knocks on the door, and this guy opens up. He said, "Sir, my car just died on me. Can I use your phone to call AAA?" And the gentleman in the house said, "Yeah, come on in. The phone's right there." So he goes over there and calls AAA, and while they're waiting for AAA to show up, they sit down in the living room and they have a nice discussion. And there, sure enough, AAA shows up, and this guy's walking out the front door, and he looks at the gentleman. He says, "Did anybody ever tell you that you look like that SOB Harry Truman?" And Harry Truman says, "Yeah, I'm that SOB." So, I thought that was funny. Sorry for the crudeness. Yeah. He ignored it. I can tell you a little story real quick about that. They were playing just 2 weeks before he was fired. They were down playing the Texas Rangers. Of course, Billy Martin was managing the Texas Rangers, and they were down there. Shirley was sitting right behind George Steinbrenner. You have to understand, for most of the time that Bill managed the Yankees, George Steinbrenner was under federal indictment, and he was not supposed to technically have contact with the team, but he did. Taos would probably talk more of that than I can, but anyway, he would kind of try to use Shirley to get to Bill by inviting her up to the suite and making sure that she was sitting next to him in the stand, or whatever the case. We were down in Arlington, and Dick Hauser, who I'm also interested in, was his third base coach. And Dick, for some reason, there was a hit, and he held up the runner at third. Well, Steinbrenner thought he should have waved him home. And so, Steinbrenner stands up and starts yelling at Bill, "Either you fire that third base coach, or I'm going to fire you." Well, Shirley's sitting right there. And Bill just kind of ducks his head and goes in the dugout. Ironically, I think it was 1978 or 79. Hauser is now the manager of the Yankees. And Bill goes to winter meetings with Shirley, and he sees George over there on the mezzanine. I guess they went up an escalator. They were on the mezzanine. He walks over to him. He says, "I bet you're glad I didn't fire him now, aren't you?" And he said, those are the last words I said to George Steinbrenner. But the funniest one was when they were playing the Boston Red Sox in Boston, and Mel White and his son Steve were staying in a room that Bill was staying in his room, and they were getting ready to go out to dinner or something, lunch or whatever it was. But anyway, Mel said, "Steve, go up and see if Bill's ready to go to eat." And so Steve goes to Bill's room, knocks on the door. Bill opens it up. He's got shaving cream. He's shaving. And to come on in. And so Bill goes finish shaving, and the phone rings. And Bill says, "Can you grab that?" And so Steve picks it up, says, "Hello." He said, "This is Steinbrenner. Is Virdon there?" And of course, Steve about fell over. He couldn't believe he was talking to George Steinbrenner. He said, "Just a minute, sir." So he goes, and Steve is pretty, he's a good athlete. He goes over and tells him, "Hey, Mr. Steinbrenner's on the phone." Bill said, "Tell him to wait a minute." And so he said, "What do you mean, tell him to wait?" So he goes over and says, "Mr. Steinbrenner, he'll be with you in a minute." So he lays the phone down on his credenza or whatever it was. Bill comes out, wiping off his face, and picks up the phone. I don't think I put this in the book, but anyway, I think I put it in the Mel Wright chapter wrote for another book. But anyway, he said, "This is Virdon." And Steinbrenner proceeded to tell him what he wanted the lineup to look like and everything else for the next games. And Bill says, "As long as I'm managing this team, I'll decide who's going to be playing what and what the line." Click.
Wow, I think that's a great story to end. Wow. Anybody else?
Sound about right, Tal?
Yeah. Thanks,
I just wanted to say, I thought David did a great job telling the Bill Virdon story, and his book is even better than that one. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Bill Virdon obviously was very special to me. Shirley was too. And I think you've really captured him. Bill Virdon was a wonderful person. I've spent my life in the game, and you meet a lot of people, a lot of players, a lot of managers, a lot of scouts, a lot of coaches. And most of them are really nice people, a few on the other side. But Bill Virdon was really exceptional. As David has pointed out, Bill had absolutely no ego whatsoever. He was just a wonderful person, the most genuine, sincere person you could ever expect to meet. And I think that's what made him so successful in baseball and in life. A wonderful person, and his wife Shirley too. David, thanks for a great job. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for everything. I appreciate David driving all the way down here. Yeah, Bob.
If 8 o'clock, we can find out, everybody has not turned in their votes, we either give it to Gloria.
Yeah,
Everybody has not turned in their vote for tonight.
Lou, you want to change your vote, right? Right, okay.
Protest those who clean on that parade.
Real quick, Fred, we have a trivia contest. The only reason we're gonna go ahead and do that is because the winner gets an autographed copy of this book. Wow. Okay, the winner tonight gets an autographed copy, otherwise you have to buy your own. Okay, so real quick, we'll do the trivia contest and get out of here.
It's really rare. There's 6 Bill Virdon. We have been counting all the answers. I'm sorry. I think you saw it. All right, y'all gonna go single or you gonna go gang? I got plenty of either way. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
There's a couple of layups and there's a couple of bills, test your ability.
Any questions about people dying? Okay, let's do it.
I actually brought a couple of pictures if anybody needs one. One more.
Is there any more about it?
Everybody need a contest?
Yeah. Got some extra?
All right, I'm going to.
You won't get them all right. I don't ever give everybody.
Essay.
But you know, Tal, you do have an advantage. Well, you're old enough to have met a lot of these guys.
All right, those of you online, I'm gonna go ahead and share the contest. Fred, go ahead and read them, Fred.
All right.
Whoa, what happened here? Hold on.
There have been only 4 players in Major League history that have achieved a season in which to produce 20 doubles, 20 triples, 20 home runs, and 20 stolen bases. Who are they? You got 4 possible points there.
Sam, and those of you online, you got that? Can you see the screen? Good, okay.
Tony, you got them all already?
Question 2?
All right, question 2. This is a tricky one. What do the following players all have in common? Derek Jeter, Mel Ott, Eddie Matthews, Al Kaline, Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, Eddie Murray, Johnny Mize, Mike Piazza, Ozzie Smith, Manny Ramirez, Adrian Beltre, and Mark Washington. There's a couple of them that took the surefire answer away.
Can I move to the next one online?
All right, question 3. There have been 5 position players that have won a platinum glove, which was first awarded in 2011. That also pitched an inning, at least one inning in a game. Who were they? We got 5 possible points there.
Dissertation application.
Next one's kind of a soft toss. Name the only 2 players that won the Rookie of the Year, that won the MVP, and that won at least 3 World Series rings during their career. That's the softball question. That was an easy one. There's a couple of them.
I'm right there with it.
Now, question 5. Question 5 is with Cal in mind here. You'll understand why. What 3-time All-Star hit 3 home runs in a game twice against the team that traded him? Question 6. There have only been 2 players in Major League history with the last name of Moyer. Ed Moyer and Jamie Moyer. What do they have in common other than their last name? There you go. Well, that was another soft toss there. Question 7. Of all the players to ever win the Rookie of the Year award, only 7 have hit 35 or more home runs the year that they won the award. Who are they? There's a possible 7 points. This question is my favorite question on the quiz. Which pitcher who won more than 100 games in his career as a hitter had more hits than he struck out and also more walks than he struck out as a hitter? All right, the last question, it just blew my mind that these numbers don't make sense, but there have been 10 hitters who have hit 30 or more home runs in a season, but had yet less than 65 RBIs in that season. We got 10 of them. You gotta be hitting some bad luck to get that many bombs. You're only adding some two extras. You got all these answers already. Sure.
See if everybody's ready.
Everybody ready, or y'all still congregating?
Online, you ready?
There's a David Jerome book on the line. I mean, we're playing for big prize money. President's giving me the finger here.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Hand those ballots back out. Change your vote.
Anybody feel like they got a perfect score? Okay.
There you go.
I've seen some of your guesses. I've seen some of your guesses that you don't know. I imagine they're going to be on mine. Yeah. Okay. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right, back to question 1. So, who are the 4 players that you came up with?
Barry Bonds.
No, sir.
Bill
Willie Mays.
Virdon.
No, sir.
Ricky Henderson.
No, sir.
Ken Griffey.
No, sir.
Junior.
Nope.
Mike Trout.
Ted Williams.
All right, we're gonna go faster.
Martin Maldonado.
Willie Mays, Jimmy Rollins, Curtis Granderson, Wildfire Schulte. I thought you'd be the one that would nail that. Wildfire Schulte, look it up. Yes, tell him who qualifies under the question here.
Okay.
Question 2, the easy one. What do those players have in common? All of you were thinking in Hall of Famers, right? Until you saw, oh, Manny Ramirez, Mark McGuire, that doesn't work. Rookie of the year. None of them ever won an MVP. None of them ever won the MVP award. Question 3, the 5 position players.
Tevin Kiermaier.
Who?
Tevin Kiermaier.
No, sir.
Arenado.
No, sir. You got Jose Trevino, Yadier Molina, Alex Gordon, Anthony Rizzo, well produced on YouTube, because he struck out none other than that first baseman Freddie Freeman, and Andrelton Simmons. Those are the 5. You what now?
Could you repeat those again?
Yeah, Jose Trevino, the catcher for the Yankees, Yadier Molina, Alex Gordon, who was with Kansas City at the time, Anthony Rizzo, and Andrelton Simmons. All right, question 4. This one y'all will probably knock out of the park. Who were the 2 guys?
Jeter.
Who?
Jeter.
Nope.
Buster Posey.
That's one.
Mickey Mouse.
He was mentioned tonight. When he played on the Montreal Expos, Pete Rose. Pete Rose won Rookie of the Year in '63, the MVP in '73, and then he won World Series with the Reds in '75 and '76 and with the Phillies in '80. Question 5, funny question. So who is this famous bandit that a GM traded away only to bite him in the butt twice.
What's the stuff?
Good guess though. Ben Ogilvy. Ben Ogilvy. And sets on July the 8th, 79, and on June the 10th of 82, he had 3 bombs in the same game against the Tigers while he played for the Twins. Or for the Brewers, I'm sorry. Question 6, the fun question. What did the 2 lawyers have in common?
They're married.
Hmm?
They're married.
They're actually not related. They're no relation at all.
Jamie was born, I think the day that Ed died or Ed's last.
Exactly. Ed died the same day that Jamie was born.
Was it not related?
They're not related.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
It was November 18th, 1962. Ed dies, Jamie's born.
How'd you come with the question?
You know, I dig. I look for crazy crap.
Fresh.
You know, the 3 guys that I'm in the Hall of, that I went to the Hall of Fame with, whenever we did all the, we're all 3 trivia nuts. So, I mean, we were on the button the whole time for firing questions. Okay. All right, impressive. Question 7, on that Rookie of the Year home run record. How many of them? You should have got several of these. Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge. McGuire. Mark McGuire. Frank Robinson.
Bill Cole?
No, sir.
No, Walt, Bill Cole.
Luciano?
No.
Brian Brown?
Nope.
Sean Green?
Nope.
Albert Pujols?
Albert Pujols. There's well. Come on. Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso. He had 53. He's the first one. Cody Bellinger.
Who?
Cody Bellinger.
Never heard of him.
And here's a guy that I can't believe nobody got.
Good answer.
Jose Abreu.
Wow.
Come on, man. He's right in our backyard. I thought
The minor leaguer?
Yeah, the minor leaguer.
Now for my favorite question there. Who was this amazing pitcher that won over 100 games, yet as a hitter, he had more hits than he struck out, and he had more walks than he struck out as a hitter?
Bob Gibson.
So far, nobody.
Darryl?
Bob Gardner. Babe Ruth.
Wes Sterling.
That was a great guess, actually.
Yeah,
That's a great guess. And Rysdale would be a great guess also, but that's not the answer. You could pray for rain, but it was Johnny Saint. Johnny Saint had 116 wins. He had 190 hits. He had 24 walks, and he struck out 20 times. That's a pretty damn good hitting pitcher, if you ask me. All right. And question 9. So we got all these bad luck home run hitters there. Dave Kingman is not.
Gene Wayne.
Cal Schwarber is.
Adam Dunn.
No, sir.
Nicholson.
No, sir.
Frank Luzinski.
No, sir.
Chris.
Dave Kingman, no.
Walter Soriano.
Nope.
Either Chris Davis will the C or a K.
No, sir. No, sir.
Who is he?
Richie Sexton.
No.
Yeah, he got his gun down.
Yeah, he did. That's why. You're thinking of Rob Deere.
Yes.
Yes, Rob Deere is an answer. It's Curtis Granderson. He had 30 homers and drove in 59. Jed Jerko. Now there's a great name. That's the guy from Oakland. 30 homers, 59 RBIs in the very same season that Curtis Granderson did, 2016. Kyle Schwarber, Cedric Mullins, 30 homers, 59 RBIs. Mike Zunino, 33 homers, 62 ribbies. Eric Thames, there's a real good name for you. 31 homers, 63 RBIs, but never heard from him again. This guy cost me $40 when he did it, because it was on our trip. Lucas Duda with the Mets, 30 homers, 64 RBIs. Get a home run that cost us a jackpot that night. blast from the past. Felix Mantinilla in 1964, 30 homers, 64 RBI. And the last one was Hunter Renfroe. Hit 33 homers and had 64 RBIs. I mean, you got nobody on base.
So they all made it up there?
Schwarber did it in 2017. Mullins in 2021, Zanino in 2021, Thames and Duda were both in 17, and Schwarber. And then, Rob Deere was in 92, and then Hunter Renfroe was the last one, 2019.
So what do we got 32 possible
We got
answers.
32 possible. Anybody got 30? Anybody got 15?
Anybody 15?
10? 8? Anybody got 5?
Anybody got 5?
Nobody's got 5?
Everybody's on a curve.
Uh-oh, big curve. 4? 3? We have a winner.
Wow.
I'm gonna say this, Joe, being a teacher, that, 10%.
I feel great on the curve, so great. Congratulations, you got a 3.
Great, are you, Betty?
Well, I hope you found it challenging.
Yeah. Congratulations, Greg. You want a book? And you have to show up in July.
July, not June.
July. You got to write out the trivia contest for next time.
Okay.
All right?
Remember, we might have some more modern questions, stuff that's happening.
Wait a minute.
Felix Mantinilla.
All right, everybody, remember, our next chapter meeting is Monday, July 15th. We'll have Matt Dahlgren, grandson of Faith Dahlgren. We have quite a few things going on this summer, and we'll find out who won the election. I'll send something out, probably tomorrow. Okay, thank you all for a late night. David, thank you for driving all the way down from Missouri. Thank you all.
We'll be with you all night. Okay, Joe.
Yes,
You
sir.
want to leave it on the light side?
Go ahead, leave it on the line.
Steve Rose, Steve Garvey, and, Steve, Wade Boggs. We're having a couple of beers and Boggs said, you know what, I think I'm, gonna go over and check her over the dams. Garvey said, well, you better not, she might be carrying my baby. Rose said, want to bet?
Everybody have a great night. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. David, I have some books up here for sale if you want to buy them.
Thanks.